CBS News Miami.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Najahe Sherman, and welcome to CBS News Miami's 4 p.m. Quickcast. Let's take a look at today's top stories.
Always alerting, always tracking. This is Next Weather.
Off the top, taking a live look outside, we are tracking a big warm-up in South Florida. So what can we expect as we head into the weekend? Next Weather Chief Meteorologist and Hurricane Specialist Ivan Cabrera tracking it all.
I've changed my plans for the weekend. I'm going to head to the beach. This is, I mean, it is going to be not just, warm here, but 85 to 90 degrees. It's going to feel like about 90 to 95. So that water temperature in the mid-70s may feel good to you. 83 is the current number, but it feels like 88 degrees. Earlier this afternoon, we climbed up to about 92 for the feels like number. So that's going to be a factor again anytime you get humidity. And we've been talking about this change, right? East wind, now a southeast wind. Eventually, we're going to turn around and bring a southwesterly wind, a very warm wind direction. And also some showers as well in the forecast. Couple stray showers rolling through the middle keys here. Otherwise, relatively quiet. But this is going to be our setup heading into Saturday. I think we'll have some coverage at about 10%. So pretty dry heading into Saturday afternoon. If you're making plans for this evening, it's looking good. Partly cloudy skies with temperatures very warm. It's just going to be humid out there with upper 70s as far as the temperatures. The big picture here, 86, 87. Both days will feel like it's in the 90s. And then one of those days, which will be Sunday, will have a little more coverage as far as rainfall, but all the while temperatures well above average for this time of year. Here is what's going to save us next week. We got one front coming in on Monday. That's going to get us back to average temperatures, but it's the second front I'm tracking for Wednesday that's going to bring us a significantly cooler and drier setup here with a lot less humidity. That's going to set us up for a nice Thursday and Friday. You'll see that in the 7-day forecast. Rain tracker not showing much again for tomorrow. Southeast to eventually a southerly wind flow here, so a couple of isolated showers would be about it. And then for Sunday, with a little more coverage, we're going to get that wind out of the southwest, and that'll bring us a few more showers, so coverage going about 20%. I still think we're looking pretty dry for the rest of the weekend. And as we check in for the forecast for tomorrow, with temperatures in the mid-80s, rain chance at 10%, we'll bump that up to 20. About leave it there with that first front coming in on Monday. Doesn't have much moisture to work with, but a few showers are possible. There is back to some relief here with temperatures in the low 80s, but it's that second front that will leave us with temps overnight in the 60s, 50s as well as we head into Thursday, but a quick rebound, then we'll start warming up by Friday and into the following weekend again.
Ivan, thank you. A devastating situation in Fort Lauderdale. One person is dead after being struck by a train. Chopper 4 over the scene. This is along Southwest 10th Court and 21st Avenue. Fire rescue tells us a woman was hit by a train earlier today. No one on the train was hurt. New details on a hit-and-run crash. It led to a traffic nightmare in Miami this morning. CBS News Miami's Peter Dinch explains what happened.
The victim was taken here to the Ryder Trauma Center. Officer Mike Vega says that he has some serious injuries and could face a long road to recovery. Take a look at this new surveillance tape from a Marathon gas station given to police. They say it shows the suspect running away from the scene. The Dolphin Expressway's entrance and exit ramps were shut down for a while when the accident happened at 4:40 this morning. The victim's now shredded red Toyota was southbound at 27th Avenue, and police say it was hit by a northbound black Chevrolet Suburban at Northwest 11th Street. Police say the driver kept on going to 14th Street, even though his car lost one wheel and he fled on foot.
In the video provided by the Marathon gas station, it shows the suspect running away, but then it shows him like hiding behind one of the little buildings next to it, and then he just decided to run away. All we know for right now is that he had some black sneakers with thick white bottoms. It looked like he had some dark pants on and no shirt. We talk about this all the time. If you are under the influence, if you have no driver's license, if you don't have insurance, whatever, remain on the scene, face the consequences for that. You might get a slap in the hand. But when you leave the scene of an accident, you just escalated it to a felony.
Mike Vega says the police are still looking for the suspect. He said because the car was not reported stolen, he is hoping that police can identify him and find him. If you can help, call Miami Police or Miami-Dade Crime Stoppers at 305-471-TIPS. In Miami, Peter Dinch, CBS News Miami.
History at the U.S. Capitol. For only the 6th time in history, the House has voted to expel a member. CBS News Miami's Nicole Skenga reports from Washington, D.C.
George Santos has become the 6th member of Congress ever to be expelled by his own colleagues.
The clerk will notify the governor of the state of New York of the action of the House.
The vote came after the House Ethics Committee found that the New York Republican deceived donors and used campaign funds to buy Botox, designer clothing, and take trips to the Hamptons in Atlantic City.
Read the report. It's a 50-plus page report, which I believe is very damning and really sets forth the evidentiary basis for why expulsion is proper.
Some Republicans pushed back against Santos's expulsion, saying the courts or the people of New York should decide whether Santos continues to serve.
The people of his district elected him. They can elect someone new a year from now. I see no reason for him to be expelled. I hope that cooler heads will prevail.
But his fellow Republican lawmakers from New York spearheaded the push to have him expelled.
Obviously broken the law, defrauded taxpayers, voters, and donors.
Santos left the House floor even before the vote was finished, and he made no comment as he left the Capitol. Nicole Skenga, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
All of the South Florida members of Congress voted to expel Santos, except for Maria Elvira Salazar. The Supreme Court just announced that Sandra Day OConner died earlier today in Phoenix, Arizona. She was 93 years old. Here's a look back at her legacy and life.
I will do my best to serve the court.
President Ronald Reagan put a crack in the glass ceiling when he chose Sandra Day OConner to serve on the nation's highest court.
I will send to the Senate the nomination of Judge Sandra Day OConner of Arizona Court of Appeals for confirmation as an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court.
The U.S. Senate unanimously confirmed her.
It's all right to be the first to do something, but I didn't want to be the last woman on the Supreme Court.
Thank goodness for that.
She served for 24 years, paving the way for other female justices, 4 currently serving on the court. Born in El Paso, Texas during the Great Depression, OConner grew up on an Arizona cattle ranch. She graduated from Stanford with degrees in economics and law. She briefly dated William Rehnquist, who would eventually become Chief Justice of the United States, before marrying John J. OConner III. When no law firm would hire her because she was a woman, OConner turned to public service. After raising a family, she got into politics and caught the eye of the White House.
She is truly a person for all seasons, possessing those unique qualities of temperament, fairness, intellectual capacity, and devotion to the public good, which have characterized the 101 brethren who have preceded her.
A moderate conservative who personally opposed abortion, OConner's key swing votes preserved Roe v. Wade. She successfully fought breast cancer in 1988. It was her husband's declining health that led to her resignation from the court in 2006. After stepping down, she devoted her life to teaching young people how government works.
Most of our native-born Americans can't answer all the questions that we require of people from other countries who are becoming citizens.
And her legal career wasn't over. Sandra Day OConner continued hearing cases on a part-time basis as a visiting judge. Weijia Zhang, CBS News, Washington.
What an amazing legacy. More news when we come back. Welcome back to CBS News Miami's 4 p.m. Quickcast. Now to the Israel-Hamas war. Israeli airstrikes resumed today in Gaza. It's following a week-long ceasefire with Hamas. As CBS News Miami's Bradley Blackburn explains, Israel is warning civilians to leave parts of southern Gaza.
Israeli military flares lit up the night sky over Gaza after a day of heavy bombardment. Airstrikes obliterated buildings in southern Gaza, an already congested area where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have relocated to avoid intense fighting in the north. Gaza health officials say nearly 200 people were killed and approximately 600 were injured, overwhelming hospitals. This Palestinian girl cries, "I don't know where my older brother is." Israel blames the resumption of fighting on Hamas.
Unfortunately, Hamas decided to terminate the pause by failing to release all the kidnapped women as it was obligated to do so, and kidnapped children, and by resuming rocket fire.
A spokesperson for Hamas blames Israel, saying its leaders rejected multiple ideas put forward by mediators to extend the ceasefire. The 7-day pause in fighting allowed for the release of more than 100 hostages held by Hamas and 200 Palestinians who were imprisoned in Israel. Before leaving the Middle East, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also blamed Hamas for breaking the ceasefire and praised Israel for taking steps to protect civilians.
Israel's already moved out on parts of that, including sending out information, making it clear where people could be in safe areas in Gaza.
Israel published a numbered evacuation map of Gaza and told residents to know their number in case of an evacuation. It's not clear how Israel plans to alert residents, and with large swaths of Gaza now in ruins, there's also the question of where evacuees would go. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News.
Now to Fins on CBS Miami. The Dolphins are back in action on Sunday. They're taking on the Washington Commanders. CBS News Miami's Samantha Rivera and Mike Cunio have more.
Thanks, guys. Of course, the Dolphins are getting ready to play a struggling Commanders team this Sunday. It's also been a week since Jalen Phillips, of course, tore his Achilles, and the team acting fast, signing Jason Pierre-Paul, also a South Florida native. What did you like from him, and do you think there's at all a possibility we could see him on Sunday?
Well, I like that he was a very good player in his career. Now, it's been a long time since he's been very productive. He's been on the Saints practice squad this year. He's only played one game. Now, the good thing is at least he's providing depth and experience on that defense. In terms of Jalen Phillips, obviously he's already had surgery. His timetable for return, not known, but we do know he's not going to play the rest of this year. The good news is Miami's got depth. Andrew Van Ginkel, Emmanuel Ogbah can be very productive players. We know this team thinks a lot of Van Ginkel. JPP, how much is he going to play? Probably less than 10 snaps, I'd imagine, this first game. But again, I just think he'll be there kind of as a break glass in case of emergency type player if they do need him. But that's good that he has some experience and they can add some depth there at that position.
All right, now this Commanders team, again, I mentioned they're struggling. They're 4-8.
Don't sugarcoat it. They're bad.
They're bad. They're not a great team right now. But what do you hope to see offensively from the Dolphins, taking advantage of
less mistakes, honestly. Okay. We've seen them come back closer to, or they're at 500 now on the road, away from Hard Rock Stadium now. Obviously, beating the Jets got them there, but I want to see them get over that hump, have a winning record on the road. To do that, you got to limit your mistakes and the turnovers. Right now, Miami -5 in the takeaway margin, and that's just not good. That's in the bottom third of the league at the moment. We've seen them clean up the mistakes in terms of communication on the road. They've gotten better in that area, but now the turnover problems. They've got to get rid of that. You don't like to take teams lightly. The Dolphins should win this game. They're almost double-digit favorites, 9.5-point favorites. They were big favorites against the Jets, but still made some of those mistakes. Yeah. Got to get away from those mistakes, especially with the bad teams.
Yeah, and as head coach Mike McDaniel mentioned, Tua is the first person who gets the most angry about those turnovers.
I would too. If I was throwing picks, I'd get mad at myself too.
Absolutely. Well, thankfully, you're not out there being the quarterback.
I can do it.
No, you can't. All right, but that'll do it for us out here in Miami Gardens. I'm Samantha Rivera. He's Mike Cunio. We'll throw it back to you guys.
And that's the CBS News Miami Quickcast. I'm Najahe Sherman. Stay tuned for more news right here on CBS News Miami.